I hope you enjoyed our conversation with Punk. I can't say that too many times. Welcome to Gospel Tangents, the best source for Mormon history, science, and theology, and first daily Mormon history podcast. I'm Rick Bennett. I'm excited to continue our conversation with punk rock polygamist Moroni Jessop. This time we're going to talk about his second excommunication from the Apostolic United Brethren, and we'll find out more about racism in fundamentalism. So you won't want to miss this conversation. Check it out.
So I do want to make a mention just a little bit about race, that the AUB seemed to be a little more open to, people of Mexican descent, people of other races. My wife, Andrea, is half Asian, so they were accepting of that, but there was still a restriction against black people coming in and receiving the priesthood.
Yeah. Now, you did tell me you watched my Joe Jessop interview, your cousin.
Yeah, my cousin, whom I've never met. Hey,
exactly. He's a Montana guy. But you said that he got some stuff wrong related to the race ban. Do you want to cover that now?
Well, no, it wasn't necessarily the race ban. I'd mentioned to you that there were a few things that he mentioned that I disagreed with. It didn't necessarily have to do with the race ban, but I don't even remember what I disagreed with.
It was something with the AUB, because I remember, well, here, maybe you can tell me if you agree with what Joe said, because one of the things Joe said, there are three pillars of fundamentalism.
Yeah, I remember that.
Adam God, polygamy, and the race ban.
Yeah.
And
he's probably right on that.
So okay, so you agree with that?
I agree with that.
Well, and I don't know if I'm jumping ahead. Maybe I am jumping ahead.
I'll catch you.
Well, I know this is. I'm pretty sure this is what you said was wrong, or maybe it was I said it. It wasn't Joe. It was me that got it wrong, because I think I name dropped you and said
in your interview with Paul Reeve.
Oh, was it Paul Reeve? Oh, I'm getting them all mixed up. But it was the Paul Reeve interview.
Yeah.
Okay, so it was a Paul Reeve interview, and I said that you had a DNA test and the AUB kicked you out. And that is not true.
That's not true.
Okay.
That is getting a little ahead of the story. But
okay.
It didn't. The AUB did have some complicated issue with race, although, there wasn't like the blatant racism that I witnessed with the independents. It was a little more softened, but it was still there. Like I remember specifically that one Sunday that there was a black guy who came and attended our meeting. And then afterwards, he had a meeting with Owen Allred, who was the priesthood head of the AUB at that time.
Can we call him a prophet, or they didn't use that term?
They usually don't use that term that much. Although I guess it would be equivalent to what the prophet would be for the LDS church.
Okay, because I think I've heard that AUB's starting to go that way. They didn't used to call him prophet, but now they're kind of starting to.
I've heard that as well, but it's just rumor for me because I'm not associated with the AUB any longer. But this guy went and he was told to go to the church for baptism and membership.
To the AUB church?
No, to the LDS church.
LDS church. So they said, you're black, go ahead and get baptized in the LDS church?
And stay there.
And don't come back.
Yeah, just basically stay there. And I remember that baffled me because I was like, why can't we baptize a black person? Why?
So they wouldn't even allow baptism?
No.
Oh, wow.
No. And that baffled me even then.
Because the LDS church has had a history of baptizing black people, just they wouldn't let them get priesthood or sealings until 1978.
Yeah, that's right. So, so there was still that restriction.
So the AUB they will not baptize a black person?
As far as I know, no.
Wow.
No. So, anyway.
Is that just because it's a slippery slope to priesthood?
I'm guessing so. It's because it all stems back to Brigham Young's teaching against blacks holding the priesthood.
Brigham allowed people to be baptized, though.
He allowed the people to be baptized, but for some reason the AUB wouldn't take it to that level.
Huh.
They'd say the church is your place. You belong in the church. you belong in the LDS church. That was the response that they were given. Yeah.
Stay away from us.
Yeah.
Wow.
So anyway, we wound up becoming separated from the AUB, and I'm not really going to get 100% into that, but basically there were a bunch of things that started occurring in the AUB that I disagreed with. I saw a shift in things. For instance, I'll just give a brief example. They used to teach that, when I first joined the AUB, that fathers could ordain their sons to the priesthood. Fathers could make the decision to baptize children because who else would be more qualified to determine if a child is worthy than their own father?
Oh, so you didn't need to go to the bishop or anything?
No, you didn't need to do any of that. But then all of a sudden, you had to go through a committee. You had to go through a committee. If you wanted baptism, if you wanted to advance your son in the priesthood, you had to go through a committee. And I remember thinking, that's a big change, And then there was an attitude in the way, when I first joined the AUB, they used to say things like, we're given blessings that we're not worthy of so that we can grow within the confines of that blessing and become worthy of it. We're given things we don't deserve so that we can become worthy. But then afterwards, the attitude was like, don't ask for blessings. Don't come to us. Don't ask for them because, you're not worthy for them. There was like a shift in that attitude, And
that was because some fathers were ordaining sons that other people felt were unworthy, probably?
I'm sure there was, but in my perception, in my opinion, it was the council establishing control. So there was a group of us. There was a group of about 10 or 11 of us men, and you have to remember, I was only 20 years old, and one of them was my dad, actually, and then the other one was my father-in-law. We wound up writing a letter to the AUB Council, and we illustrated like 15 bullet points of things that we were observing in the AUB that we didn't agree with, including the ones that I just mentioned. And we sent it out anonymously to the whole, certified mail to all the council members. And then we distributed it anonymously to every priesthood member that we could send it to. We didn't put our names to it, but of course they found out who did it. We found out who was behind it. And the next thing you know, we found ourselves out of the AUB. And they did have a meeting with us, but it wasn't really an excommunication trial. It's like they got us together. With some of the council members, they asked us what our opinions were, and then they said, thank you, And my brother even asked, one of my brothers was there, and he asked, is this an excommunication trial? And they were like, oh, no, it's not, And then my dad, at this point, I guess I should say that I had moved to Arizona, or to Utah. My parents had moved from Arizona up to Utah also. When they started having problems with the AUB, they decided to move back to Arizona again. When they were in Arizona, Owen Allred called my dad up, and they had a brief conversation, and then Owen told my dad, I just want you to know that I have loved having you here with us, and I love you, and it doesn't matter where you go and what you do, I'm still going to always love you. And my dad said, thank you, Brother Owen, I love you too. And then they hung up, and my dad turned to me and he said, that was the sweetest excommunication I've ever had. So from that point on, we really weren't welcome at the AUB anymore. And
so it wasn't a formal, it was more of an informal?
Yeah. I mean, I often say I've had a total of 4 excommunications.
I remember you said that at Sunstone last year.
I mentioned that one of my friends called me an excommunication whore. But the fundamentalist excommunications weren't as formal as the LDS. It was kind of like, we don't want you around. We don't want you around anymore. But I'll get into that too. So we moved to Eastern Arizona.
So you can't be excommunicated from an independent group, right?
I mean, I don't see how you can,
So LDS, independent, AUB, but that's only 2 excommunications so far.
That's only 2, and there's more to come.
Yeah.
So anyway, we moved out to Eastern Arizona. We bought property. We established a united order, and gradually we started building a community over the years. And
This is you and your dad and your brother,
Me,
basically?
my dad, a lot of my siblings, other people that we had associated with in the AUB, and more people came out of the AUB eventually and joined up with us in Arizona. So at the most, our group in Arizona maybe had about 150 people.
Oh, wow. That's pretty good size.
But you have to count that with fundamentalists, most of that is kids, little kids. So
how many adults would you say?
Oh gosh, I don't know. Maybe about 7 or 8 families.
Okay.
And
7 or 8 families. That's like 20 kids per.
Something like that. So my dad passed away in 2002. Shortly before he passed away, we had a man from the AUB contact us. He was in the AUB, and he had met online a woman from New Zealand that he was interested in marrying. And the woman was half Maori and half Samoan. And then in her previous marriage, she had been married to a Tongan, so she had 4 children from a Tongan. And I mentioned earlier that there's an issue also with a lot of fundamentalists about Polynesian people.
Right.
So basically what happened is that the AUB had been really wishy-washy with him. Owen Allred had agreed to seal this woman to this man. And then he'd change his mind. And then he'd say, no, I'm going to seal you. No. And then he'd change his mind and go back and forth. And I think the issue was that he was having a hard time getting the council to support this man marrying this woman from New Zealand. And so there's a man who was a 70 in the AUB who secretly came and married them. And but he wanted to have that ratified. He wanted to have somebody with proper priesthood authority seal them rather than just a 70 who supposedly, unless they're commissioned, shouldn't be performing plural marriages or sealings. So at that point, he contacted me through a common friend and explained his circumstance to me. And I went to my dad and I said, okay, hey, there's this man. He wants to be sealed to this Polynesian woman. What do we think about that? What do you think we should do? And my dad said, son, we better just leave this one alone.
Oh,
and
really?
Yeah, that was his opinion, because he had been told by independents and by the AUB that there was an issue with Polynesians. I had been told the same thing. I didn't see that there was any reason to doubt that. I mean, never mind the questionable history on that, which I'll get into. But so I got a hold of this guy, and I said, yeah, I told him, you have no place with us.
Wow.
And he didn't accept that. So in the interim, my dad passes away. So this is happening just like a few months before my dad passes away. My dad passes away, and then this guy contacts me again, and he didn't accept it. He said, it was unfair the way I was treated in the AUB, and he said something that resonated with me. He said, all I wanted from the AUB was righteous judgment in this matter. I wanted to be judged righteously by men of the priesthood, and he said, and they wouldn't give it to me. Where can I go to obtain this kind of righteous judgment? And that struck a chord with me. And I thought, this isn't a topic that we need to shy away from. So I invite this guy out to one of our conferences because, like most Mormons, we have conferences twice a year. We have one in April, and then we usually have one at the end of September. End of September because traditionally the establishment of Mormon fundamentalism is around September 26th, 27th. That's when the proverbial 8-hour meeting takes place that starts fundamentalism. So we commemorate that instead of in October like the LDS Church does. So I invite them out to one of our conferences, and so we're out there, and our chapel is out in the middle of the desert, and we watch this car pull up. And
now let me make sure. So you've left the AUB now. This is kind of the Jessop family group.
Yeah, I mean, some people called it the Thompson group.
Okay.
But because the guy the AUB council member that kind of pointed us in that direction was a guy named Joe Thompson.
Okay.
And so called it. Most people in the fundamentalist world call it the Thompson group.
Okay. So this Thompson guy secretly married this Polynesian couple.
No. Actually, Joe Thompson was dead even before we moved to Arizona, or shortly after we moved to Arizona. He had passed away.
Oh.
So my dad was actually the guy presiding at this point, and then he passed away also.
But they still call it the Thompson group?
Still called the Thompson group because there was a lot of Thompsons that were there by this point.
Okay.
So anyway, so we're in this. It's a small group in Arizona, the one with only, a handful of families. And we're having a conference, and we've invited this guy over who's married this Polynesian woman. And we watched their car pull up, and then they pull up to the building, and we're all gathered outside, and they get out of the car. And the minute I looked at this Polynesian woman, I thought, oh, there's nothing to worry about here. I don't know how to describe it. I felt like an affinity towards her right away. I felt like an instant love for this woman right away.
So let me ask you a question. Because I know you'd experienced racism in Utah with a Mexican heritage. But up to this point, were you still all in on the black ban?
I was, even though there was aspects of it that had bothered me.
Okay. When they told the black guy, go join the LDS church, that bothered you.
It bothered me, but Brigham Young taught it. Who am I to question Brigham Young?
He didn't teach that blacks couldn't be baptized.
No, he didn't teach that blacks couldn't be baptized, but these men in the AUB were apostles. So same thing. Who was I to question what apostles decide on?
So you were just kind of going along with the company line.
I was just going along with it.
And so because they had an issue with Polynesians, even though the LDS church doesn't, you were just going along with it.
Right.
Okay.
Just going along with it.
Okay.
So, but anyway, and I guess I should say that by the time, we were a small group, by the time this story happens, we had a small priesthood council of about 3 men that are older than me. And then I was like the senior president of their 70. And I'm only, at this point, I'm only in my early 30s, but I'm already like the head 70 for this particular organization.
Okay.
So I'm in charge of all the missionary work.
Okay.
And so that's why I was the one communicating with these people, because I'm the 70. So anyway, they show up, and I took one look at this lady, and I thought instantly, there's not a single problem in baptizing this woman, sealing this woman, anything. And I don't know how else or why I believed that. I just looked at her, and that's what I felt.
Revelation.
Possibly. But other people in the community had the opposite visceral reaction when they saw her.
Oh, really?
They looked at her and they thought, quote, Canaanite.
Really?
Yeah. And, some people had revelation that, she was, and I hate to even use the word, but the word that they use is polluted. She can't hold the priesthood. She can't receive temple blessings,
So priesthood and temple are synonymous?
Well,
because you still have a male priesthood, right?
Yeah, a male priesthood. So the more correct thing is she couldn't receive blessings of the temple.
Okay.
So they came and they attended our meeting, and it was evident to everybody, even the people who didn't agree with them being there, that these were good people. And so what our priesthood council decided was that they were going to that they could attend meeting with us, but they couldn't be fully fellowshipped, baptized, or receive the priesthood until we knew for sure. And they put it, we need to find out for sure. We need to pray. We need to get revelation. We need to get the word of the Lord. We need to know more about this before they're fully fellowshipped. So they started attending meetings with us. They moved to Arizona. They became part of our community in every way except being fully fellowshipped.
So were they already married? They were just looking for a sealing?
Yeah.
Okay.
They had been married in the AUB secretly by one of the 70 in the AUB.
The Thompson guy or somebody different?
The guy, it was another guy who had sealed them. So they're attending meetings with us, but they're like in this state of limbo.
So they're married, but they're not sealed. That's their status, essentially.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So they're attending meetings with us. I think one of their daughters became a teacher in our Sunday school, or not in our Sunday, but in our primary, excuse me. They attend sacrament meetings with us. Their kids function in all the youth functions with us. They do everything in our community short of, being able to receive the priesthood or go through our temple. Or we didn't have a temple. We just did the way we did since we just makeshift. We kind of arrange our little chapel to serve also as an endowment house.
Okay.
So we'd hang sheets and things like that to make it look like a temple whenever we were going to do endowments. So,
okay. So this is your 150 person group. Okay.
Yeah. And then we also had a prayer room up at the top floor of our chapel, like up in the attic of our, there were some steps that led up to the top floor of the attic.
Like the old Kirtland Temple.
Yeah. And so you would go in and it was done really nice like a temple. There was an altar. There was like really, finished carpentry. It was really, really nice, And so we would meet every Sunday morning at like 6 a.m. to do true order of prayer. But this family was not invited to that.
Oh, okay.
But the rest of us would go. Well, the time turned into years. This family attended, I think, like a total of 3 years. And finally he came and he was like, when are they going to make a decision? And so what I did is I organized a priesthood meeting with the leadership, and I brought it up publicly. I said, when are we going to make a decision about these people? They've been here 3 years now. And I kind of got accused, a little bit mildly reprimanded, stating that I was rushing things.
Now, you're the president of the 70s?
President of the 70s, yeah. But I had everything I did had to be according to permission from the 3 elder men who formed our priesthood council.
Okay. I hope you enjoyed our conversation with punk rock polygamist Moroni Jessop. In our next conversation, we're going to talk about his 3rd and 4th excommunication.
And so the apostle that had his son marry one of the Polynesians, we're talking like about 10 years later. He says, maybe we ought to do DNA tests on ourselves.
Uh-oh.
He says, if we required her to have a DNA test, it would only be fair if we did one on ourselves. And at the time I honestly thought, no, this is a really bad idea.
If you'd like to hear the entire interview uncut, subscribe on either Patreon or at gospeltangents.com. For just $5 a month, you can hear the entire audio uninterrupted. On our $10 tier, if you would like to see the whole video, you can see that either on youtube.com/gospeltangents, or I've got a special Facebook group devoted for full videos. So subscribe at gospeltangents.com and sign up for just $10 a month. For $20 a month, if you'd like to get some bonus content, maybe some of the stuff that ended up on the cutting room floor, you can sign up for that. And then if you'd like to talk to me for $100 a month, we'll do a monthly phone call on something like Zoom, and you can ask me anything you want. So thanks again. Also, don't forget about the merch, mugs, t-shirts, hats, things like that. I'm trying to get the ties up there. Hopefully I can get up there. And thanks again for watching Gospel Tangents, and click here for some more videos.